Hi, welcome to the Tru Crym Podcast. I'm Renette.
And I'm Reyna.
So today we have two very special guests, Reyna and Leah. Ladies, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us what you do?
My name is Leah Hogue, and I am a Latent Print Examiner for the San Diego Sheriff's Crime Laboratory. And prior to that, I used to work crime scenes up in the Los Angeles area for about 2 years. And as a Latent Print Examiner right now, I've been doing this, July was 22 years.
Wow.
Nice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reyna Shelton, and I am currently a program manager for the Forensic Intelligence Program with the United States Secret Service. But I was a crime scene investigator for a few years and also a Latent Print Examiner.
Wow. You guys have the coolest job. Thank you so much for coming on to our podcast. So we have some questions for you ladies. Some of the questions are questions that Reyna and myself came up with, and some were from our followers on our Tru Crym Instagram page.
Okay, so what made you choose this career?
Started back in probably 1991 when Silence of the Lambs came out, and I just said, that's what I want to do. I want to go to the FBI. So I ended up going to San Diego State and got my criminal justice degree and graduated, and then realized I would not be a very good FBI agent because I don't like guns. So I was working for a detective at the time, volunteering for the San Diego PD, and he suggested I be an evidence technician. I had no idea what that was. This was in 1995. So he told me about a program at Grossmont College that did an evidence technology program. So I literally walked at San Diego State and put myself into the 2-year program, the evidence technology program at Grossmont. So took 2 years to graduate. I did a bunch of internships in San Diego. I worked for Chula Vista PD, San Diego Sheriff's Crime Lab, and for San Diego PD. And it was impacted here. So I basically had to move up to Los Angeles to get my foot in the door. Got hired with Pomona PD. They were converting from having police officers do their crime scenes to the civilians, which are people that don't wear guns. And so I got hired as a second evidence technician and worked there for 2 years doing crime scenes, processing evidence, taking photography, taking measurements. And then in 2000, I missed San Diego so much that I got offered to apply to the San Diego Sheriff's Department. So I applied, and here I am 22 years later working in latent prints. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, some of the questions, but we'll explain what latent prints are.
Okay.
That's really cool. I'm learning a little bit about Leah myself. I started off right out of high school. I wanted to be a police officer. So I wanted to be a beat cop. That was like my dream. So I started at the local college here, Southwestern College, and started taking AOJ classes, Administration of Justice classes there. Next to the criminal justice classes were the EMT paramedic classes. So I was always looking over there like, oh, they're doing some really cool stuff over there. But I was like, okay, cop. Then I got an internship at Chula Vista PD. This is when Chula Vista PD was on 4th Avenue before their new building. And I had never heard of a crime lab before. And the only position they had for a volunteer was the crime lab. So it was this really small lab at Chula Vista, but there were some really awesome people that worked there. And I interned there or volunteered there for a couple months.
Speaking of, no.
Yeah. And they introduced me to what they did. And I thought it was really cool because they used, it was more science, like more science with law. So they were like nerdy. They were down there like investigating crime, but they were looking at everything different. So that was the first time I was exposed to a crime lab. Went back to still taking my classes, and then saw the EMTs practicing a little too much, and I got really excited about that. I left Southwestern College, went into an EMT program, became an EMT, did that for a couple years, and my heart was just in law enforcement. So I wanted to go back, and I had my twins right out of high school when I was 18 years old. So I had my twin girls at that time, and going back to be a cop just wasn't really jiving with my parenthood. So I started taking forensic science classes at Southwestern College. They just had a couple there, and that literally started my whole career. Were those classes, and there was someone that worked for Chula Vista PD, and they asked if I wanted to volunteer in the crime lab again, and I went there, and the rest that's where I started.
Wow,
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
And there was a time that Reyna and I worked together. We worked together at the Sheriff's Department for how many years were you there for?
I was there for 6 years.
Yeah, so Reyna and I did work together at one time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have some fun stories.
Yeah. So when a little bit about my history, I started with Chula Vista PD as an intern. And then I was promoted to a forensic specialist. So a forensic specialist at Chula Vista PD was a crime scene investigator. So I started off with the more 2 senior crime scene investigators, forensic specialists, and they basically showed me the ropes. I had that schooling behind me, but then they trained me like on the job training, and that's where I got a lot of my experience. We're just going out to crime scenes with them, and then taking the evidence back, processing the evidence at the laboratory back at the PD. And then from there, I really wanted to get into latent prints. And like Leah said, you couldn't get into latent prints unless you had experience in San Diego. There were just too many people wanting to do that, specific position. So I had to leave to Yuma Police Department, where I had the crime scene experience. So I helped them with the crime scene when they taught me latent print examinations. So I did a crime scene investigation out there, Yuma, Arizona, and while they trained me in latent prints. So I worked out there for a few years, and then there was a position at San Diego Sheriff. I wanted to come home because all my family's from San Diego. Applied, got the job, became a latent print examiner, and that's where I met Leah. And we were also on the CSI team. So San Diego Sheriff's a little different. CSI team as a latent print examiner, you specialize in latent prints. So we were called out for very specific reasons. So they had their evidence technicians there at the Sheriff's Department where they did the general crime scene investigation, evidence collection. But then you also had specialists on the CSI team. So we would get called out for like needing to identify bodies, things that had to do with prints. So it was very specialized there.
Yeah, so anytime they'd have a homicide or a death investigation, we could get called out to a scene, and if they didn't know the body, if it's John or Jane Doe, we would collect their prints out in the scene and then come back to the lab and then run it through our automated fingerprint identification system and see if we could ID them. And we would also respond to the suspects and take prints from the suspects so we could use in our comparisons. And then we would also respond to the autopsies because we're going to have to collect the fingerprints of the deceased so when we could do comparisons on those cases. So, so not just doing latent print comparisons, but we also would respond to the morgue. And yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, that's really cool that you both ended up back in San Diego where you both wanted to be.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grossmont College program, when I actually was there, it was only 1 in 7 in the country.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And when I graduated, it actually, literally when I was graduating from the Grossmont College program, the OJ trial had just completed. Wow. So I really was super lucky. But that's why San Diego was so hard to get a job because of the program. Everyone wants to get into that field once they go through school. And there's not that many. I mean, you have the Sheriff's Department here, you have the San Diego PD, Oceanside PD, El Cajon, La Mesa, Chula Vista, Coronado. Am I missing anything? Escondido. And that's it. And those small departments, they maybe have 2 crime scene investigators.
So
San Diego PD has their own laboratory, and then the San Diego Sheriff's has their own laboratory, and then the Sheriff's Department for the little agencies would do the lab work for these smaller agencies.
Oh, okay.
So we're contracted out. So but yeah, that's why Reyna and I had to both leave because it's really hard to get your foot in the door.
I would imagine now it's probably even harder. Do you think?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, when I started pretty early too, there weren't a lot of programs out. Southwestern College was a very tiny. I had the same evidence technician program when I was there, but Grossmont was a larger school for that. So I came from a even smaller school, and it wasn't a big thing. CSI wasn't out. There were just not a lot of people interested in it. So there was a lot of us that were just falling into this field because of circumstance or what happened or what have you, but it wasn't really like you didn't go to high school and high school counselors were talking about crime laboratories or crime scene investigation or anything like that. It wasn't like that. Yeah. So a lot of it was I found like a lot of the classes that we get students now and interns that are just highly trained. They come out of these schools, like West
Really?
Virginia University has a really great program out of there. And they're coming out knowing a lot of these things that we all learned on the job. So we had to
Wow.
learn those things on the job, where they're coming out just trained really, really well. So it's very different. And yeah, you have all those students going to their classes and trying to get jobs, and it's tough.
And another thing is too, when Reyna and I got onto it, you didn't need a science degree. I had a bachelor's in criminal justice. That's not science. And now they're requiring a hard science. So they're phasing out the times where you didn't need a degree, and they now want you to have a degree, and now they want you to have a hard science degree.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Yeah, not all agencies, but that's where our field is definitely going.
Yeah.
And it's just because we've learned so much too in the forensic science community, education, like there's research or, mistakes that have been made where a lot of policies come after that. So it's really evolved since we started, and it's just a little different now. So yeah, they definitely want that science background.
Oh, okay.
So then what is your typical workday, at least when you guys were doing crime scene investigation? Like, what's the typical workday like?
when I was doing the crime scene investigation, you would have at the time a pager, and you would be on call 24/7. So you could get called out anytime. But obviously there's not crime scenes happening all the time. So it would be a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then processing evidence for fingerprints, taking the prints, running through the database, doing comparisons, go home, and then get called out.
Oh, okay.
And then you could get called out and you could be out there, anywhere from 4, 5, 10, 15 hours.
Oh, wow.
It's not like on the CSI show, you're there for a long period of time, and it's time consuming.
Do you get to flash your badge? Like,
No.
when you walk behind the yellow tape?
Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
flash
no,
it?
that's what happens. You get there, the yellow tape, which is kind of cool. The news would be there, and then everyone leaves, and you're there by yourself. I remember being in Pomona once. I got to a scene. They had taken the body, but there was PCP there, a weapon there, and all the police officers left me on a foot pursuit, and I didn't carry a gun, and so I'm like. And this is in a gang area.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're
it
in
was
danger.
really, really scary. And so I'm like, So,
there should always be a police officer with you, especially there's a lot of us civilians that do crime scene investigation, and there's supposed to be a police officer protecting.
Because you don't have a gun as
Because
civilians.
you don't have a gun.
right?
Some agencies do.
Yeah, some agencies.
Some crime scene investigators do carry guns.
Mm-hmm.
But the agencies I've worked for, you don't. You're a
Right.
civilian.
Did either of you ever get trained to how to handle a firearm?
I am personally afraid of guns.
Okay.
So I process them, and I don't even like to process guns, but I've shot them before. I really don't feel comfortable with them. And actually, I'm very soon going to be getting trained.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
to get over my fear. It's
Oh,
silly,
okay.
but
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good that you're doing that.
Yes.
I'm proud of you.
It's good to know.
I don't even
about...
like fake guns. I don't even like water guns.
A lot of the evidence handling, you're handling guns, so
Okay.
you should be trained in
Knowledgeable.
the safety, absolutely,
Yeah.
how to render them safe, because you're packaging up and you're bringing them right into the crime lab, into the police department. So if they're not rendered safe on the scene, then that's causes trouble. So yeah, you.
So
should
then
get trained.
when you guys have been called to a crime scene, have you guys ever actively in that moment been terrified of possibly something happening to you or the people that you're with, actively in that moment?
I personally haven't, but I do have coworkers that have.
Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, because you have to remember, once there's a scene, there's there's family that's upset.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
maybe there's a suspect that's still on the
At large.
loose. So you kind of got to you have to watch your back. But like Reyna said, you do have officers there, and you also have detectives there, and they're all armed. So
okay.
for the most part, you're pretty good to go. But I think some agencies have their evidence technicians wear bulletproof vests.
Yeah, some agencies.
Yeah.
I've never worked for one that required that, but
Yeah. So
I've never been scared safety wise, but I've been scared spooky wise.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be in the house and you're by yourself, and a crazy homicide just happened and there could be blood everywhere.
Oh gosh.
And you're by yourself walking through that house, you know, doing your thing.
Yeah.
And the officers usually are by the, you know, door threshold. They're not
guard?
following you. Yeah. To guard the, you know, for your safety. But I always get that feeling, or I used to always get that feeling. It would be like, talk to me, Goose. Let me know what happened. And then you start feeling things like, are there spirits? Like, are they trying to talk to me? And it's like, I was in my own head at that point. And then I would get freaked out. And then I'd like go down the stairs and make sure like people were there. So that's the type of scare that I got. Not really for my safety, but yeah.
That's understandable.
Did you ever do that?
No, I actually, though, at one time I was at a scene where there was a body and it was on a reservation and it was really hot. It was like July, really warm. And I remember like going through a pocket of like cold air and the officer with me is like, you just walked through his ghost. So I'm like, like open his hand. So yeah, I mean, we're human, right? So I'm a scaredy cat sometimes.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really scared me though. Like I don't have nightmares about the stuff or anything that I've seen or.
Yeah. I got a spooky story about that. So I don't really believe in like that sort of stuff. Like,
Supernatural.
I'm very, like I was telling you guys, like very evidence based.
Yes.
Like I you know, just seen something like it's like, oh, that's crap. Like show me type thing. And so there's a lot of people in our field that talk about like ghosts and connecting with the victims and all that stuff, right? Never been that person. But I was working a cold case and it was 4 children that were murdered and their parents were murdered as well.
Oh my
and I
God.
was working on the evidence for that case and the particular, I was in the lab and I was by myself. It was late and there was another lady in the offices part, but I was in the lab. And I was working on the plastic bag that was used to suffocate this little boy. And so when I was processing it, I just felt there was someone like to the right. And you know when you're not really looking at the person, did I tell you the story?
You can feel
did.
them.
Yeah.
But I like hearing it.
Yeah. So you know someone's there. And
Yeah,
I
you can
thought it was
feel
the
it.
woman. You could feel it. Like someone's
Yeah.
Can feel the
direct-
presence.
Yeah.
And there's a door to my right. And I was kind of doing my thing and I was like, hey. And I called the girl's name, like expecting that she was going to be right there coming in from the offices. And there was nobody there. And then totally saw a lady with like dark hair, and this lady that worked in the office had blonde gray hair.
Oh my
And
God,
I'm
I'm picturing
That
the
is
ring.
So
I'm picturing the ring.
It wasn't scary like that. It was just like a woman there, like from the corner of my eye, and I turned around like fully expecting someone to be there, and nobody was there. So the mom had long dark brown hair. So I'm not saying it was her. I'm not saying. I'm just
Sure.
There was. I felt something there. Whether it was her or not, I don't know. Wow. But like that's weird.
That is very creepy.
Weird. And then it was unsolved at that time.
I was going to say it was a cold case. You said.
It was a cold case. Yeah, it has been solved since. But
it has.
It has.
Good.
Yeah. But it ended up being the best friend of the dad. It was a really sad story. Yeah.
Oh my God. Not that there's ever a reason to do something so horrific like that, but what was his reason?
Money.
Wow.
Money motivated.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they didn't. He was there for the dad, but didn't realize all the kids were coming home. So just started taking them out.
Oh
really sad. But
Yes.
but I happened to be working on the bag of the littlest boy, and we didn't know who it was at that time. So
like when you get home, how do you guys like separate that stuff? Like, do you become just kind of like desensitized to it?
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't. I mean, there's some things that do bother me. Like, I don't know why homicides don't bother me. A lot of the stuff that we deal with are usually gang related or drug related. It's rare you have those really once in a lifetime. Like,
they call them true victims. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying like a gunshot
they're all
victim is not a victim,
victims.
but like a true, like a lot of what Leah's talking about is there's a lot of gang violence. Like,
Yes.
they've done violence to other people. Yep. They weren't so innocent, and then they were killed. That's sad. They were killed.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when you get someone that's truly innocent that was murdered, like a young child, or just any number of things that we call them true victims, and but that's a little different. It hits harder.
Yes.
Especially children.
Yeah.
Children always hit really
What
hard.
does bother me is traffic fatalities. That's what bothers me. So it's not homicides, suicides, overdoses, it's traffic fatalities.
Really?
So yeah. Which is nothing really part of my job. I mean, I used to work up in LA doing the photography of it, but really we don't do traffic fatality reconstruction or anything like that, but just being at the morgue and seeing that stuff.
I guess maybe just knowing that they were like maybe just driving, thinking, I'm going to get to my next
Yeah.
destination.
Exactly. It's like you just don't know, right? So that stuff, and that could go into my head and spin a little bit. So, but the other stuff doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It actually makes me appreciate life. I mean, because you never know. And so my attitude, it's been not negative going down the rabbit hole. It's more positive, like don't take any day for granted, you know?
That's a
I
good
love
way to
that,
look at
Leah.
it.
Yes.
Thanks, Reyna.
Yes. Me, I became very
Cynical?
paranoid.
Yeah.
Like, especially with my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll tell you in high school, junior high school, they were not allowed to spend the night anywhere because I just thought everyone was like a rapist and a murderer or something. Like, you never know what people do behind closed doors.
No,
like,
right.
you truly don't. They could put on a face, but
Right.
you don't know what they're doing. So I think if you talk to them now, I was a little overboard. So I think that it did hinder them in some ways. One daughter in particular, you know who you are. Kind of scared of everything.
Which one?
But she's very brave.
Okay.
So she moved out to the East Coast. Alina, I'm talking about you. She moved out to the East Coast on her own and right out of high school. And she was, always like looking behind like her back, like paranoid, going to the other side of the street. And it was good because she was always aware.
Yeah.
But it's also sad because she was always like paranoid someone was going to come up.
Yeah.
And because I would come home at a very young age and I was a young mom. So I started like this field. I was young, kind
You
of
were a
growing up with
child,
them. I
kind of,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in my 20s, early 20s. I would come home from scenes and I would tell my young kids about the scene.
Really?
Like, this is what you need to be worried about because this kind of
Yeah.
shit
Kind of
happens
good.
out
It's like a
there.
little fear factor.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but it was a little too much. So I learned after like them.
Balance
like,
it.
Yeah, a little balance is good in life.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happened to me, more of paranoid. And you really have, when you're on a scene, you have to push everything out. Like you wouldn't be able to have clarity to do your job if it was in your head about what exactly happened, like the motion wise.
Yeah.
the kid ones though, the ones with the kids.
Everybody's quiet on kid scenes.
Everyone is quiet.
Yeah.
They're very, very. They're respectful at all scenes, but it's really different at a kid.
Just such a deep sadness, right?
Deep
different.
sadness.
It's-
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is. And then like for normal crime scenes, like you have to have some kind of levity just to get through the crazy stuff that you're seeing.
Yeah.
The heavy stuff that you're seeing. So there's a lot of us that joke on crime scenes. And then like I remember like news cameras would come around and stuff. It's like, okay, it's like because we'd be like laughing with each other and joking or like razzing each other.
Yeah.
Just because you gotta like, and everyone has sick jokes because the line that you're in is just
Yeah.
kind of different. And you would have to make each other laugh because if you didn't, that was the way that I dealt with it.
Yeah,
anyway. It
I
was
think
just
a lot
like,
of people do, and
mechanisms
we're not
and
hard, we're
stuff.
not like hard
Heartless.
people or anything. It's just a way to have just to lighten the mood and stuff like that.
and then you
Yeah.
box it all up.
You box it all up, put it on the
Put
shelf.
it away.
You have
Your
good
next
friends
call
that you can
comes
talk
in.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open a bottle
Talk to your
of wine.
coworker.
So what particular case have you guys worked on together?
So it was Reyna's case, and it was a greeting card. They have a lot of times in the jails, they put drugs in greeting cards, and that's how they'll get, they transfer drugs somehow. So we get that stuff to process. And Reyna was having a card to look at that had some beautiful prints on it, on this greeting card, and they were great. But she wasn't IDing it.
And it was weird looking.
It was
I'm like,
weird
these
looking,
are off
but,
somehow. Like
but they
this is-
were, and they're like, why aren't we? And because we had a person of interest, a suspect. And then in our industry, they say something. What was it? He said it's
Drink
like
more coffee.
Yeah, drink more coffee. Sit back and drink more coffee, and just take a break. Well,
Because prints
okay.
could be really hard and straining on your
straight
eyes.
on your eyes. You have to.
Sometimes
take
we get
breaks.
tunnel vision where we're looking too hard into it
Yeah.
to where one of our trainers, like Leah was saying, is he always said, just drink more coffee. Go up, get a cup of coffee, and then come back. And sometimes you'll just
Yeah, you just see it pop right out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're smelling different perfumes and you get coffee beans. You know how like you
Oh,
smell
yeah.
it?
You know, like
Take
resets
syrup.
everything.
Reset.
Yeah.
And she did that, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh my gosh, they're feet impressions." So we ended up going to get the person's feet impressions, which is collecting the impressions on the bottom of the feet, just like we take collecting the impressions of the fingerprints.
And I can't stand feet.
Yeah.
They gross me out.
that about you.
Gross me out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with feet. So I did the feet. I got the feet. And then we asked this person, we're like, what on earth? They're like, we saw a CSI effect. We saw CSI and we saw this technique done. And so they got it actually from the show CSI. So it's pretty brilliant, but then we caught him. So
Yep. So they did it. What they were doing is trying to hide their fingerprints, and they stepped all over the car to leave their footprints on it.
yeah.
Right? But if you think about it, it was kind of smart because when you get your fingerprints taken, you get booked, you commit a crime, you get your fingerprints taken, and they go into the this repository where they hold all the prints. They're only taking your fingers and then your palms. We don't really capture the bottom of your feet. So you have the specialized skin on your palms, your fingers, fingertips, bottom of your feet, and your toes. So that specialized skin is unique to each and every one. So we don't really capture the footprints. So it was kind of smart to where they were like, and it would have totally thrown us off. Like it looked like a hand, like a palm, but I was like, there's just something odd about that. Yeah, and like Leah said, it ended up being their feet. So we went out there, and I remember their foot. We had to print their foot.
Yeah.
Speaking of feet, I have, and I know this is not gory or anything, but something that really freaked me out that just popped into my head right now is we were at the morgue, and it was another partner I was with.
Oh.
And there were bloody prints at the crime scene, so we had to get feet exemplars. How I told you the story?
No.
And my hair was in a ponytail.
Oh, I do know this story. That's really funny.
And I had to print the feet, and I don't like feet, and now I'm printing feet on someone that's dead. And God rest her soul, but she didn't do pedicures. Let's just say I was having a hard time. And so I was bent over this foot, and I was really into taking my impressions and everything. And my ponytail comes down, and these were the toes, and it's just it comes swinging, lightly swinging on her toes. And I tell my partner, I'm like, is that my hair touching her toes? Cut it off. Cut off my hair. So I literally cut off my hair. Yeah, the edge of the ponytail that touched her little toes. Do not like feet.
Oh my god.
But that was a cool case, yeah.
Yeah. We all have in the industry, we all have something we don't like. Like, I don't like dangly fingers. So
What do you mean? Like, just
so like when you have like defense wounds, sometimes somebody gets shot, you have it'll shoot off your finger. And so when we have to take the prints, they're like dangling. And so we all have something that bothers.
I wouldn't like that either.
Yeah. No, but like Reyna could probably do a dangly finger. I don't.
Oh yeah, I put them back together.
Yeah.
I could break rigor really easy.
Yeah.
You're breaking bones to rigor, like you get really stiff.
stiff, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to when you're collecting the impressions, you have to bend them and you have to
break
breaking
rigor. Yeah.
And sometimes you're breaking bones.
So there's a special tool you use.
No,
to
it's us.
Oh, just your
that's
own
why there's
strength.
two of us that go, because we have to assist one another. And actually, there's sometimes the rigor is so bad that we've actually had the hands cut off. So Reyna and I have actually together had the ME's office cut the hands, and then we actually transport the hands to the lab, and we have to use solutions to soften up the tissue. And it'll take a couple days. We soak them, and then eventually it'll get softened up, and then we could actually take the prints from the hand, and then we return the hands back to them. So,
And it's wild how
So
easy
can you
your hand
alter a
comes off.
fingerprint?
can we alter a fingerprint? Yes.
Can someone
Can
alter
someone-
their own
Yeah,
fingerprints?
Yeah, we've seen. I've seen where I've been down to the border to go take prints, and somebody has used acid, and it works. But then, you have ridge detail in other parts of your hands, so there's ways to ID them in different ways. But yeah, it does work. And we've also seen where, I don't know if I've had a case like this, but they surgically remove the prints and then they flip them around on other digits of the hands.
Wow.
So they'll actually have a plastic surgeon take the prints and then rearrange the order of the prints. But again, that's still distinguishing, right? I mean, you're looking at the ridge detail, and when you record them, I mean, it's still unique. So,
So when the acid burns it, though, does the fingerprint grow back, or is it just like gone forever?
I don't think it grows back with acid.
So it depends on how deep you go. So you can, so when you get a scar, there's like different layers of your skin. So there's a layer that's called, you have your epidermis and then your dermis. And then right at the in between, I guess, so to speak, there's a basal layer. So that basal layer it's called the generating layer. It's your blueprint for the way that your finger, your ridges are formed. So if you get a paper cut, you see the cut, and then you're always sloughing off skin cells, and so eventually that paper cut goes away. But if you have a really deep wound to where you hit that basal layer, that's the blueprint that you're damaging, and then now that's when you get a scar. But then now that scar persists, so that scar is part of your blueprint now, so you'll always have that scar. So it's kind of the same where you're saying people altering their fingerprints. If you go deep enough and you hit that basal layer, yeah, you could damage your prints. But like Leah was saying, and there's a case you guys should Google. I have the images at home. I use it for my classes, but it was the border as well. They took the patterns from their toes, removed the skin patterns, and had them surgically implanted onto their fingers. But they did such a hack job that when they were coming across Customs and Border Patrol, it was Customs, I think, they're like, what is going on? Because if you guys see the pictures, there's like, it just didn't heal well. It's like horrible. And so they got them, they took pictures of the fingers, and then they took pictures of the bottom of the feet and where they took the patterns off of the toes. Oh my gosh.
So it looked like Frankenfinger and
Frankenfinger. Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah.
Frankenfinger.
Frankenfinger. But yeah, there's like Roscoe Pitts. Like there's a lot of people that have tried to change their fingerprints and stuff. But like that one guy, he had all his patterns removed. He had his hand surgically attached to his torso. So that it's kind of like skin grafting to where he had like the skin from his torso. So he didn't have any patterns. So if you look at your finger, he had all his patterns that were different, but they literally just went right down here to identify him. Because this is all specialized.
Yeah.
So you would have to do your whole hand, your whole
to really
feet, toes,
change.
but really your hands to get away with something.
And no two people have the same prints.
Oh, okay.
They're formed.
That was one of your questions.
They're formed
I was wondering that. Like, if you're a twin, like, can it somehow, like...
You might have similar patterns, but no two people have the same fingerprints. And from the time you were born till the time you die, they stay the same. They just get bigger. So I like to describe it as like a water balloon. So let's say you have a balloon, not a water balloon, a balloon that's... not filled up with air. Tell me what the word.
Deflated?
Yeah, inflated. Is that right? Inflated. A balloon that's not inflated, you put your name on it, right? When it's little, but then you blow it up. It's still your same name, right? It's just bigger. So that's how fingerprints are.
Oh, okay.
So
I listened to a podcast and it was saying this person said that from when you're in your mother's womb, I think it's when the mom is 24, like weeks pregnant, that's when your fingerprint starts forming. They
form way before that.
Yeah.
So,
really?
Yeah. So they're actually set in place right around that time, and then they just the other parts of the fetus is growing. But fingerprints are the ridges, friction-rich skin in general is formed really early on, and it's all the stresses and like the way that you literally bounce around in utero that's creating those natural patterns, like the way that your ridges flow, they stop, they bifurcate. Like it's that nature.
The diet, anything that they're taking, just all different things.
Different. Yeah.
Wow.
So you can have like the same. You have patterns that are the same. So I have identical twins. My twins have all the same patterns on their fingers, but you have to look within the pattern, at the details within the pattern, minutia. We call minutia, to be able to tell them apart.
Okay.
So it's different from DNA. My twins have the same DNA, come from one embryo. And they have the same DNA makeup because they split in two. But their fingerprints are different.
With the show CSI, has that caused any issues in your field?
That is called, they like to call that the CSI effect.
Okay.
And you actually, for me, I get called to court quite a bit because of the CSI effect. And basically with all these people watching these forensic shows, they now become the expert themselves And just referring to fingerprints, they think you could get fingerprints off of everything. So I end up having to go and explain, let's say there's no fingerprints on an item, explain to the jury that just because somebody touched it doesn't necessarily mean they left something behind. Fingerprints are extremely fragile. Sometimes people don't leave fingerprints. It's the way the evidence is packaged. We have our elements, maybe they evaporated, but they're really fragile. So not all the time you could get it. And so the jury is just looking, they're like, oh, well, we thought you could get prints off of everything. And that's just not the
They're
case.
just everywhere.
And so that's just really interesting. But they call it the CSI effect. I mean, it's almost frustrating you going in there and they're sitting back like, oh, we don't need to hear you. We already know.
I watched 5 episodes.
Yeah. They're like, we're the expert. But CSI effect. It comes up all the time.
Okay.
Have you had to testify for that CSI effect?
Never have testified to it.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. We get a lot of training on it, but I've never had to testify to it. But I get negative testimony. I remember testifying a lot to negative testimony. It's like what Leah was saying, is that just because your prints weren't, found on, like, let's say a rock or something that's not going to really be conducive to leave a print, it doesn't mean you didn't touch it. It's just you didn't leave it behind. And it's like some people have really dry skin.
I was going to say, like, isn't it
oily.
usually like oil that leaves like a perfect
Oil,
fingerprint? So if
water.
it's dry, it won't leave.
Yeah, so you get all kinds of great stuff with prints. Like normally, like in a perfect world, you have your sweat coats your friction ridges, and then when you touch things, it's like little stamps of your fingerprints, like touching everything, and you can't see it. But when you go and process it, then that's when you're able to get it. But let's just say if you don't sweat a lot, or if you have dry hands, but then I put lotion on. And I commit a crime, and now I'm touching things. You're still leaving your pattern behind because you have lotion. We touch our face a lot. We touch our hair a lot. We have a lot of oils on our face and in our hair. Like you're coating your ridges with all that good stuff, and then you're just leaving behind your little patterns.
It's like a little
everywhere.
natural ink pad.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, that's how
yeah.
you describe it. It's ink, because it's like transferring onto an item. But just like that with leaving the prints behind, there's some people, like those that are in construction, that work with cement. So anytime I go and process somebody, I'm like, are you in the construction business? And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, because your prints, you don't have, I mean, they're rough. And then also the older you get, your ridges, they don't really seem to excrete sweat and stuff, right, Reyna? And their ridges get like
Thinner.
fine and thinner. And so you kind
For
of,
all your listeners out there, mine are still very robust. I'm a young woman.
You're both are like, I don't know what that's like.
That's funny, Reyna. But yeah, so, and we see a lot of that when we go to the morgue, right? So you see, but
Yeah.
So what is the grossest like crime scene that you guys have ever been to? The most like disgusting, awful?
I have a funny one. It's not really gross, but it's kind of funny. It was when I was working up in LA, and there was a guy that was stabbed and had like a bonsai plant thrown on him. It was a bloody mess in the kitchen. And the EMTs had come to try to work on him. So the little EKG stickers were all around. And I went in to photograph him. And so I'm photographing this small little area. And I like walk out, and then I go back, and all the little EKG stickers are gone. I'm like, what is going on? There was a little ferret running into my crime scene, and like stealing these like EKG stickers and bringing them to his like
Nest?
little nest. And so I'm like, those things are little critters, but I don't know. Like, I am trying to think of gross ones. I mean, you see a lot of gross stuff, but there's nothing that stick out. I mean, the morgue when you see jumping maggots, but I don't. Jumping maggots are the worst. But I don't really necessarily have a gross one. Again, it would be a traffic fatality, but
My gross ones are anything to do with the claw hammer. When someone gets killed with a claw hammer, like the hammer with the little claw on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Those are really gory. There's 2 that stick out in my head right now. Yeah, they're a mess. There's brain matter everywhere. Like if they're hitting the head and the cranium, you start getting seeing pieces of actual cranium like on the body or around the body. Those are always really brutal.
shotgun to the head is brutal to see.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't think not to the head. No.
Suicides? Really?
No, we didn't go on a lot of suicides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you
shocking.
never had like other people's like, well, they're already deceased, right? But like somebody's bodily fluids get on you
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we are gloved up and all that kind of stuff, but like, I mean, I'm sure. But
Have you guys ever vomited on a crime scene?
I almost did the other day at the morgue.
Okay. Okay. What happened?
I opened up the bag and I just don't know what I was thinking. And I wasn't thinking, of course, because
Smell.
yeah, it was a decomp body. And it
Big
wasn't
whiff.
pretty. It wasn't pretty. And it was green. And so.
So the only thing that would make you vomit, Reyna, is some feet.
Yeah, I don't think I would even vomit with feet.
Yeah.
For me, it's fecal matter. That's probably what throws me over the edge. But
And you had a fecal matter story.
I did, yeah, but that wasn't a crime scene, so we're not going to talk about that. When I was an EMT.
Oh my gosh.
What has been the most disturbing case that you've worked on?
For me, it was going back to the claw hammer. It was actually a child that killed his parents while they were sleeping in bed with it was actually multiple tools now that I think about it, and then lit them on fire, tried to burn them.
Wow.
And I think that was the most disturbing for me because I had kids, I still have kids, but just thinking about like what? Like killing your own parents, like what happened? Like where did it go wrong? Like I just couldn't, and the brutality in the crime scene was like I just couldn't register. Like
Yeah.
what? Yeah, it was wild. That was probably the most gruesome, but it was also like an emotional one too because
Yes.
the kid killed them, and it was really sad. I had a lot of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the most rewarding thing about your job?
For me personally, I really like identifying the John and Jane Does. So we also do a lot of work for the medical examiner's office. So if they do have a John and Jane Doe that comes in, they will request for us to run the prints of the database. And there's nothing more rewarding than putting a name to the body. So
Yes.
Yeah.
the family could be notified, and that to me is rewarding. I wouldn't say something like closing a case or anything. I mean, of course, closing a case is great, but having a family know that
Yeah.
their loved one's been found with a name, because you
Yes.
don't. So I would say that for me.
For me, it's kind of cheesy and just justice in the end for the victims.
Yes.
And it's really rewarding when you have a part in that. Because we all play roles in the investigation, and whether we play a big role or a small role, just contributing to the case is really rewarding, especially when you get to testify at the end in court to an identification that you made, let's say, to the suspect, just to help bring closure to the family. Like, I think that's the most rewarding with everything. Someone has to do it, right? All the crap that you deal with at crime scenes and all the stress it puts on you and families and all that stuff. Like, it's, in the end, I would do it all over again just because of that feeling that you get. Like, I helped that family. Like, I helped bring closure.
Definitely.
So
Yep.
that's the rewarding part for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do crime scene investigators really draw chalk lines around where the dead body is?
I've never seen it.
No.
Okay. I wonder why they do that in shows.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it was like a really back in the
From
day
the
they used to
50s.
do that.
I don't
yeah,
know.
like I kind of think like Sherlock Holmes like era did that, right? I don't,
Okay.
but I've never seen that happen in a crime scene. Maybe they did.
We're
it in
not
the old
allowed. They're
days.
not actually. So just to let you know, the body, when there's a body, it's actually the property of the medical examiners.
Okay.
So we're not even allowed to touch the body. And we have to wait for the medical examiners, which could take hours before anything is done with that body.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So that's something that probably a lot of people don't know.
What is the academic path like that someone can take today to get into this field?
So today, so there's many jobs within the crime laboratory, and so if you're specifically talking about CSI, crime scene investigator, a lot of police departments do not require a hard science degree for a crime scene investigator, but there is some kind of evidence technology degree that is highly desirable, because those, like Leah talked about, Grossmont College, Southwestern College here in Chula Vista has one.
National University.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of colleges now that have evidence technology degrees, and that will teach you specifically about crime scene investigations, how to preserve evidence, how to collect, photography, like all those things that you need to know while investigating like a crime in regards to the evidence. So you don't really need a 4-year degree for a crime scene investigator, but any laboratory job that you want usually requires a 4-year degree in a hard science.
Okay.
So there's different units within a crime laboratory that you could go into. There's the DNA unit. There's the latent print unit that we worked with together. There's toxicology. There's trace. There's firearms. There's
Narcotics.
Document
examiner, which is where they analyze handwriting exemplars and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a
Trace evidence. That's where they're looking at shoe impressions, fibers, tire marks.
Okay.
So when you get into the lab, it's they require the hard science, because a lot of the jobs are, with some exceptions, they're more criminalists. So criminalists are more like a generalized scientist. So some crime labs, you can move around each department as a criminalist. You'd have to get trained in that, but because you have that hard science background, you know the scientific method. You know, like for us, latent print unit, like there's a lot of sciences that go behind how is it that we can identify people? Well, it's based on sciences. Like there's
Biology
anatomy, physiology, biology, the way that your skin forms, the way that it's unique to each person. Like we rely on those sciences to do what we do. So there's just, when you're in the lab and you're making an opinion, so we can go to court and provide opinion testimony. That's our opinion. That's our conclusion that this person, that's Jane Doe's left ring finger. And we're allowed to testify to that because we're trained in that.
Yeah.
So as a CSI, it's a little different because you're a little more, you're a generalist. So it's more of like evidence. You go in and you testify to the evidence collection, the chain of custody, the photography, like whatever they ask you specifically about the evidence you testify to, but you don't give your opinion on anything.
So they're collecting fingerprints, they're collecting the firearms, they're collecting the drugs, they're collecting handwriting stuff, but that's what they're testifying to, is collecting that, not actually
like what their thoughts and opinion on it.
Yeah, not opinions.
Right. So you take like a blood spatter expert. They're specifically trained in blood spatter. Like as a CSI, I would go and I would you either assist, if you were lucky to work in a county that had a specialist that specialized in that, you would assist them with photography. They basically tell you what to do. But if there wasn't a blood spatter expert, then we would go and photograph and collect the blood evidence, and then the expert at the back end would analyze that blood stain pattern to then render opinion. But we couldn't render opinion as a CSI. We're just there to collect the evidence.
Okay.
So everybody like specializes in their own area. So yeah. So if you want to usually work some labs don't require it, a 4-year degree for latent prints, what we do. But it's quickly going that way. So I think most do. I would say most do now.
And on my unit, we all have the 4-year degrees.
Okay.
Not all science. We do have one that has a biology degree. We have one that's got 2 masters in chemistry.
Oh, wow.
So, most of us, we all have 4-year degrees, though.
Okay.
Because actually, they want you to have 4-year degrees. It's going that way where...
So I would... highly recommend, if you are interested in having a crime laboratory job, it's a 4-year degree in a hard science.
And to add on to that, and if you are interested in doing this field, I tell this to all students: intern, because not only is that a way to see if you're even going to like the job, but the connections you make are huge. I mean, we both interned, and look what we got into our jobs because of internships. Half the people that are working in our lab, they were an intern.
Okay.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah.
Mine is always stop doing drugs.
Yep, that's my second thing. Stay away from drugs.
And that's what I tell, like when I go present to high schoolers or even college students, is if you're serious about crime scene investigations or working in a lab, they're almost always connected to a law enforcement agency. When you work for a law enforcement agency, you have to go through a background.
Yes.
And they're going to test you for drugs, and you have to have, if you, let's say you smoked weed in high school, that's fine, but you have to have years separated from that.
Yes.
So if you're really serious about it, stop, because you got to get past the background check.
And the background
Everybody
test is
does.
lie detectors. You fill out lengthy questionnaires. They go to your neighbors. They go to your coworkers. They ask the questions. I mean, it is brutal.
So it's
Your finances. I mean,
Oh, and social media, I'm guessing as well.
yes,
Absolutely.
social media has. It's been huge, not on what you can and cannot post. And I mean, you've heard about it in the news. People get fired.
Yes.
Some of the stuff that they've said.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've got to be very careful, and we have to also represent the agencies that we work for, right? So,
drug use. And then as a student, I highly recommend, and I wish all schools did this, is go see an autopsy. Because you think you could handle an autopsy until you go to an autopsy.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so I remember one girl back in the day, she had a master's of forensic science. And oh my gosh, that's a lot of schooling.
Yeah.
Never seen a body. Her first autopsy could not hang.
Really?
Totally different field. It's like all that education.
Yeah.
It's like if you
All that
can't
I think
time.
it would be one of the obvious,
Yeah, and there's a lot of schools
tests.
that don't do that. So if you are in a program, I would ask your teacher, encourage them to set that up with the local medical examiner's office. Like you'll find that a lot of these agencies are they do a lot of educational outreach. So it's just highly recommend going to an autopsy, seeing a body, because some people just can't handle it.
and also the shows like CSI, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It isn't. I mean, it really isn't, because they're long hours at these scenes, and they could be tedious. And I mean, I'm just being realistic here. Hard on your body, and it's very intricate work that you have to do. So, good qualities being anal, very organized, and
Which I'm not.
so funny. But yeah, so it's not always what cracks up to be. So that's why internships so help, because when you're in an internship, you get the opportunity
experience.
to go out and see that kind of stuff and get the vibe, if it is even for you. So
Okay. That's good. Good advice. As a woman working in this field, what challenges, if any, have you faced when working with other departments, detectives, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think things have changed since going back to when I started. I had a very great support system when I first started, and so they, I think, protected me in a lot of ways from being a female in law enforcement. There's especially back then, there weren't a lot of females in law enforcement. You're out there in crime scenes with police officers and detectives that are mostly male. Everyone super cool. But there is, I think one of the challenges that I found going through different agencies is sometimes being taken seriously as a female. When you have an opinion, it's, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes you run across that. It's just different coming from you versus if it would have come from your male counterpart. And like I said, I think a lot of that has changed, but that was just, sometimes I felt that in the culture, law enforcement, but you have to have thick skin, especially back then. And I always did. I could, mess around with the best of them. But there are certain times where like, ooh, those boundaries, like a little push, like it would not go down today. Let's just say that. Like some of the things like back then, just, and I don't mean like things physically. I mean, just like some of the, when we would talk to each other and stuff like that. It's just different. So you do have to have thick skin. You can't take everything personal because you're always learning. Like how many times did I screw up? Like you just own it, like, and get better. And don't take it so
don't have an ego.
personal. Just grow. But I think it's different now. Like I feel like there's like I work for an amazing woman lab director, and she's just awesome. And we actually have a really strong female leadership within my lab right now. And they really give you that that space and that autonomy to grow. And when you have ideas, they encourage them, and they've been really amazing. So yeah, I think it was just more like back in the
back in
you
the
hear about the good old boys.
Well,
back in the day.
I don't see that. I don't see that now. But like, I got into this field 24 years ago, and at the time I was like 26.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am coming out of doing evidence technology, and I'm going to work for 6 homicide detectives, and they're looking at me like, who are you? And I'm a really optimistic person and bubbly, and these guys were just like, what do you know? Like, what do you know that I don't know? And it's like Reyna said, you can't take things personally, and you have to have a thick skin. Now, of course, you have to prove yourself, which I eventually did.
You do have to prove
and
yourself.
I earned their respect.
Right.
But over the years, there's a lot of women in this field. I mean, and I don't know if it's because maybe women don't want to go towards the law enforcement aspect of it, but crime scenes, a lot of women work the crime scenes and are in the lab. I mean, I know my lab is majority of women, and we have a female crime lab director. We have, a lot in management. So I think it's changed.
I think a lot of like the crime shows out and like crime podcasts has made probably a lot of people, or women, just anybody, want to get into like forensics and all that sort of stuff now.
Yeah.
I wonder what made true crime like really popular. Really, like what? Because it's such a big thing now. I wonder what.
I think.
Are you talking about like the forensic shows?
Yeah.
I don't think we had a door to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, what are the cases that came about? I want to say the OJ case really is what put, forensics on the plate, on like right
DNA,
in front,
they talked
a lot about
DNA.
DNA, front center. And actually, there was a lot of errors in that. And so there was a lot of scrutiny happening with the forensics. And so we learned a lot from it. But I think that's when the shows started coming about. But prior to that, they didn't have anything about this kind of stuff at all.
No, it's a great field to be in. It really is for a female. I highly encourage it if that's something that your audience members have an interest in. It's amazing. It's even being out on the crime scenes, that bonding that you have out there. It's like they're your family. Yeah. And even though like back then it was mostly males, they took care of you. They watched your back.
Totally, yeah.
They were my family.
It's a family, yeah.
And it's just that bonding that I haven't worked.
Well, look how you guys bonded.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Reyna's a family friend of mine.
Yeah.
She's my sidekick.
Yeah. No, it's a great career. Great career. Very rewarding. And so much to do too. There's so many areas you guys could go
Oh
into.
yeah, so many areas.
Like this, it's awesome.
I did have a question. I asked it prior. For anybody listening, I did ask them like what Masuka is really like, and neither of them knew what the hell I was talking about.
I've never even seen Dexter, but I was just saying, and this is a shout out to my girlfriend Kimmy, whose birthday is today. It's August 5th.
Happy birthday!
She was the consultant for Dexter, so
that's awesome. Amazing.
And even she did it, and I never watched it, and so she knew the ending before anyone did, but. Yeah, rest in peace, Dexter show. I guess they brought a new Dexter show out, right?
Yeah, there was
another new
season.
Don't watch it.
I couldn't get into
I don't watch the CSI shows. I don't watch. Do you ever watch any of them, Reyna?
No,
I don't.
I do like Forensic Files.
I like that stuff. Yeah,
I like stuff that are
because it's
like
evidence.
It's
like,
evidence.
it's evidence.
facts.
It's real. It's based on real shows.
Yeah.
One of the shows I absolutely loved and I became obsessed with, and if anybody knows me, knows I get obsessed with TV shows, was Making of the Murder.
Oh,
on
Stephen
Netflix.
Avery, yes.
And what's interesting is when I saw it, which it came out in December, and I forgot the year, I think 2018, I could be wrong. Just the year prior to that, I actually went to a conference in Wisconsin. And were you at that conference in Wisconsin? It was a conference in Wisconsin, and the 2 detectives were actually presenting that case. And but this is before the Netflix show came out. So I'm like, duh, how the guy did it, I mean, boring. And so then when I saw the show, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter if he did it or didn't do it. There were so many holes. And if you were a juror on that case, in my opinion, should have been not guilty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was very, very passionate about it. Did you see that show?
No. What
Oh.
are you guys talking about?
Making a Murder.
No,
Stephen
but who
Avery.
is the
It's out of Wisconsin, and
name of the person?
Stephen Avery.
Stephen Avery. It's a fascinating show. I probably watched it like 5 million times. So, which is not surprising if people know me. I watch my shows a gazillion times. But that's a great. I'm going to make you watch that right now.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
Yeah, it was really good. Did you watched it?
I
though?
watched it
Yes.
multiple times too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think true crime is interesting. I think it's fascinating, and when you hear about, I think that's why it's become so popular, because it's disbelief. Like, how can you
do
that
this?
to another
Yeah,
human
yeah.
being? It's like, but then it's like you go by and you're driving by in a car accident, right? You got to look. You gotta look. Like, that's just our human nature. You want to look. And so True Crime Podcast, when they talk about different cases and the gory details, it's like you want to know, because it's just so, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that
It's
is.
so out of your
mentioned-
normal realm of your life.
Yeah.
Yes, for most people. So it's like fascinating to even consider that that's an actual thing that's happening,
Yeah. It's,
and that you hope that you never have to deal with, but you get to see it as an outside perspective, I guess.
yeah. Is that why you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ladies have any like a particular crime that you followed or a show that you particularly liked? I mean, it's kind of
Like,
weird
if
to
there's
say.
any
It's kind of weird to
case-
say a favorite murder. I mean, that's kind of creepy. I mean, not creepy, but like almost weird. But do
Oh,
you
like
have
kinda
a
like
fascinating
a-
case that
Like
you
a favorite
personal?
killer
Yeah,
or
personal that you just was fascinated by, like carrying the evidence or.
I, serial killer wise, I guess I followed a lot. Ted Bundy was just something fascinating to me, how different he was in real life versus how he was when he would commit crimes. That was insane to me, how he could just flip a switch, and the woman he was married to had no idea.
Yeah,
their
that
entire
that always
marriage.
throws me off when the spouse is like, I could never
Yeah.
see that. I'm like,
I know, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
really start tapping into your intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's two, like, probably the most popular one or known, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, yeah.
Him, but there's this guy. The second one is a guy named Armin West. He was from, so basically, he placed an ad on the internet called Cannibal Cafe. And he put an ad saying that he was looking for a man. He put the height that he was looking for, the weight that this man needed to be, and said in this ad that he's looking for somebody that is willing to give up their body for him to dine on and enjoy. And
To eat?
yes.
Like
And-
you like
be
the
killed?
cannibalism.
yeah,
ones.
yeah. And he found someone named Bert Brandis who was in Berlin, because I don't remember where Armin lived, but it was a short train ride away to Berlin. And he felt Bert Brandis like they were a match made in heaven, because Armin always wanted to eat somebody and Bert Brandis always wanted to be eaten. So they met, they were talking back and forth for a few months.
That is just
Armin
bizarre.
ended up going and picking up Bert from the train station, went back to his big mansion. He lived in a really big, like, beautiful home. And basically they were drinking wine. And so the first thing they wanted, there was a must that they ate something together, and it was Bert Brandis's penis. So they cut off his penis together.
So
and
it's like
sauteed
suicide
it.
by cannibalism. Ew.
Yeah, it's just really crazy, you guys. I could go on, but basically, they tried eating it, but the consistency got super weird when they sauteed it, so they just gave it to the dog. And then Armin drew up a bath for him to kind of, because like obviously there was like blood pouring out, and he was in a lot of pain. Gave him some medication to hopefully ease the pain, and then eventually he ended up killing him, took him upstairs to like a slaughter room, and he hung him like he had a meat hook, kind of like where you hang cows, pigs, whatever, put him on there, and dined on him for like a few months. And when his supply was running low, he put another ad, and the college kid.
I have never heard of this case
This
ever. Is this
gross.
Is this
Yeah, it's
because it's a
disgusting.
different country, right? Is it?
Yeah, it was a different country. I know Bert lived in, like
you
I
know
said,
Bert?
Berlin.
Sounds like I know Bert. She's like, I actually knew Bert.
I know Bert.
So like when the college
I know
kid, he notified the police and was like, hey, I think this guy like is serious. I think he really did eat someone. The police went there, searched his home, and they found, pieces of the guy's body in there. And at first Armin tried saying, no, that's just like wild pig. But anyways, like, so it was like this whole ordeal because it wasn't a crime wherever it took place to, cannibalism wasn't a crime.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
I wonder if
it's
that's
just,
why
like,
he did
really
it.
wild.
'Cause-
But and then they showed evidence, like they had all these emails, conversations.
Like he
of,
consented
it was
to
consent.
be eaten.
And so, anyways, he's in prison now, and he's a vegetarian.
It's crazy.
That is so wild. So what fascinates you about like these cases?
I've watched interviews with him. The reason why I'm interested in him because, like, they say, like, are they born that way or were they made that way? And he talks a lot about his childhood, and it's just so sad, and it's awful what he did. But it's kind of like, well, is he like the nicer one? Because at least he could have went and found any innocent
Murdered
person
someone and eaten them instead of asking for their permission.
You like the psychology behind it. So
Yes.
you like why you're like I'm the same way. I want to know, why does a person do what they do? And are you born like that? Is it nature versus nurture? Like,
and it's
is
not
it
glorifying because someone had mentioned to me before, like, it's like you're glorifying, and that's not it at all. Obviously, I do not like what is done. Like, it's awful and it's so evil, gross. What happens? It's more the psychology, what made them do that. And then I wonder kind of like, are some of them like truly remorseful of what they did? Or is there just this like dark passenger that they can't control and they have to act on it? It's kind of like after they say they do a kill, they're kind of like, I could breathe now. And, I don't know. But I don't glorify that shit. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Do you guys have an opinion on nature versus nurture?
That's more of a Leah question.
nature versus nurture? Okay, I do think there's a little bit of nature. I mean, have you ever not seen like a child and you just look at them and they're like the devil?
Yes.
So I could, and I'm very sensitive with energy, and not to get woo-woo-y or anything like that. But I mean, I could feel a person's energy, and so yeah, they're born that way, right? It's a child. I mean, they don't have that much experience yet. And then you add in like the nurturing of the parenting or the lack thereof. Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you look at me like that.
Reyna's face.
No, yeah, it's interesting here because I'm just not really into that.
You're like,
Are you poo-pooing me?
No. It's the conversation. Like I just never really thought of it. You asked the question, and it's like I had nothing for you because I've never really thought about it. I'm like, no opinion on that. I've just never really.
You go home tonight and you think about that.
Yeah. I guess thinking about it now, like a lot of those cases and I don't follow like a lot of, like I never really got into details of like serial killers or anything like that. But from what I do know, a lot of them had messed up childhoods.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like something changed in the childhood. Like, I don't know, just.
Well, just
So
look at,
it's-
not Manson, I'm sorry. Well, Manson, but Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He had a messed up childhood.
Definitely.
And
Seen his
so
uncle
sad.
murder his girlfriend.
Yeah.
yes, that's right. Yeah.
Or if they were somehow dropped on their head, or
Yeah. Oh,
any of
yeah. They
those,
say like
effects.
falls sometimes.
There was always a head injury.
Yeah.
Like if their childhood wasn't that great, they probably had something to do with their head. Like
Yeah, that makes
injury.
sense.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't really talked about maybe like the jobs in forensic science there too, and I didn't know that. Like that's not really something that I thought about like coming up. I just always thought local police departments and the FBI. But there's so many different agencies out there. So
Because you're Secret Service still, right?
Secret Service, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a crime laboratory within the Secret Service. Our mission is just different. So every agency is going to have a different mission. So local police departments usually investigate crimes of violence, property crimes, that sort of thing. You go to ATF.
These are the federals.
Yep.
Secret
then
Service.
You have your federal agency. So ATF
Okay.
is going to concentrate on firearms, gun crime. So alcohol, tobacco, firearms, ATF.
Oh.
And then you have FBI, which is like general.
Wait, tobacco. What's the bad thing, or what do you guys look at in tobacco?
I don't know. I don't work for the ATF, but I think came from like the older days of like crossing, maybe when it was illegal, like crossing state lines with cigarettes or something.
And then DEA.
You have the DEA,
narcotics.
So
You have
they focus on those crimes.
Okay.
Border Patrol.
Oh, yeah.
Border Patrol has their own crime lab. Yep.
Yep. But then there's places that you wouldn't even know. Target.
Yeah.
Target doesn't have a
have
crime
asset
lab, but
protection.
they have like certain like investigators and stuff like that.
I
like
used to
there's-
work for Target, and
Yeah.
I remember the security guards talking about it.
Yeah, they have. It's a special. I don't know where they're located, but
Yeah.
things that you would never even recognize.
Yeah. So just I guess my advice would be not to only look locally, but on federally. There's so many different federal labs, and going back to where I work, Secret Service, like we don't investigate crimes like crimes of violence or anything. We have a different mission, like protection, and we investigate like financial crimes. Like, so our financial system we're responsible for. So it's a little different from where I used to work, like at local police departments. We're not doing the same crime, but it's rewarding in its own way. So it just look outside of the box. Like I didn't really realize all the different agencies that were out there when I lived here in Chula Vista. And move out of Chula Vista. Move. If you want experience in life and you want like to really get a job and come back, you gotta move out of your city, like wherever you live right now. Like you move out, like go.
That is good advice.
Elsewhere.
That's
And
good
like
advice.
you guys ended up coming back, so you can leave.
Well,
and
no,
come
I'm
back.
not. So I'm not from San Diego. I'm actually from Los Angeles, and
okay.
when I got into San Diego State, this is kind of sad. I had a roommate that I was 17. I was going to be moving into the dorms, and I had a roommate in the Valley that was going to be my roommate, and she almost didn't go. And if she didn't go, I would never go into State because, well, who's going to be my roommate? I need to know my roommate, right?
Yeah.
And she did go, and I did end moving out. But if I didn't move out at 17, I don't know if I would have ever left the Valley.
Yeah.
And I tell people, if you get to go to college, leave.
Yeah.
Leave your hometown.
Yeah.
Get experience, and
You grow and
you grow so much. And
especially in this field. Like I got a lot of experience at Yuma Police Department when I worked in Arizona, and I had to go to learn Latent Prints to eventually come back. But the experience that I had over there, just living in a different area, learning that different police departments have different rules and policies and different, just the way that they investigate it, you learn so much. And then you could bring it back and actually be not useful, but actually have some experience from another place to bring it back to your lab to say, hey, this is actually, we approached it this way. And then now you have some experience from elsewhere. So,
but there's also a maturity too. Like just Reyna leaving and me leaving, there's a maturity that goes along with it. Because if you are here, and I do know people that are here and are in the field that never left, but there is a sense of maturity when you do leave, live on your own. I mean,
I would agree. Yeah, that's so learning that when I moved to Yuma, and especially the experience people doing in different ways, maturity. That's why I had the role of my girls is that I moved back to San Diego. They graduated from schools in San Diego, but they couldn't go to college in San Diego. You had to move out of San Diego.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let them look at any local colleges. It's like, you need to go get experience somewhere else and different cultures, like different places that you go, different types of people. Like, that's all good to know, but it's really, really useful in this field. Like, get out of your hometown and go get experience. And the other thing too is sometimes you don't have a choice. You got to go get your experience. You come out of college, no matter where you are. If you went to college in the same town that you lived in, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have a job. Like, you'd be really lucky if you just went from college in your hometown to hometown job.
it's rare.
Yeah.
So many students have to go out to go get that experience because, everybody, San Diego, it's beautiful out here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
everyone wants to come and live here.
Yes.
But not too many people are taking a job in Little Police Department, Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, go there, get the experience, and then come back with something.
Yeah, that's true.
And so just get out and get that experience at other different local police departments.
And it shows you have courage too. It takes courage to
Yes.
actually move. Although a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, I'm not moving, I'm staying here. It's like, but the people have courage to actually start somewhere brand new. It has courage. I admire the
has to,
people
yeah.
that go through the school and leave. Our interns that work with us that end up leaving to go to Colorado or all over. They've gone all over. It takes courage because they're
Yeah, it
leaving
does.
what they know.
Your
So-
comfort.
Yeah. There are some really, really lucky ones, though.
Oh, there are.
That didn't have to leave at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they went to school here in San Diego. It's beautiful. Who wants to leave San Diego, right?
They got an internship.
And then they got a
hire.
really great job with the crime lab. So there's some of those like, oh man, you're just so lucky you never had to leave. Like I was
Yeah.
working Yuma, Arizona, 160-degree
Oh,
crime
gosh.
scenes where my boots were melting on the asphalt.
Yeah.
When you said Yuma, I was kind of thinking like, God, going to those crime scenes, like
Yeah.
for anybody that was left outdoors, like
Desert,
in a sauna.
the
Oh,
heat.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the temperature too of the houses, most houses out there had AC. So your first instinct is when you go into these crime scenes and the dead bodies there is you want to pump the AC like really low because you're hot.
Yeah.
But you can't do that because then it starts messing with like the body temperature and everything like that. So you
For
have
the
to do all
MA's
the
office, yeah.
You have to do all the documentation first, and then when the body goes out, you're cranking that bad boy down. 'Cause you're hot. Yeah, it's different. It's different. But I learned a lot from Yuma. It was really good. They were good to me out there.
Nice.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, you
You
guys, for joining
guys.
us, giving us all of your insight.
Yeah. It was very interesting, and
Yes.
I loved all of it. Thank
That's
you
awesome.
so much.
And if you guys get any questions like from your listeners afterwards, I mean,
Yeah.
feel free. I think this is an amazing career, and I think we're both open to helping
Yeah.
anyone get their foot in their door, or talking about the different education programs out here, specifically in San Diego. Are your listeners mostly from San Diego?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some amazing programs here in San Diego.
Okay.
So yeah, if they have any questions, please shoot us. We would love to help anyone out.
And also with the crime lab, now that the pandemic's, like to say, almost getting over, but we started opening up crime lab tours. So for the San Diego Sheriff's Crime Lab.
Anyone can go?
If you go onto the website, I think it's the county website, and then you could find the area where it talks about the crime lab. There, you actually could put in a request for the public. And
Okay.
Wow.
I'm the tour coordinator, so
we should go.
I get to
Highly
set
recommend it,
up.
guys. That facility is amazing.
Really?
So we've
And-
been there 3 years, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's on the county campus, and it's located right next to the medical examiner's office. And yeah, it's
I might be
great.
biased saying this too, but one of the best crime laboratories in the country.
Wow.
Absolutely, hands down. It's right here in San Diego County.
Yeah, we're
They're
really
an amazing
lucky.
group of professionals. They just awesome. If you guys can tour it, it's just an amazing.
We should go.
facility.
Let's go.
I'm so down.
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's-
you could tour them.
Yeah, you can. Usually, they I think they used to usually just be for schools and stuff like that.
Right.
But
Okay. I never got to do that.
yeah, but it's open to the public now. We just officially started doing tours, and we usually like to do them once a month at the end of the month.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Because I get an analyst from each department, unit, section, and they give you about a 10-minute spiel of what they do. And we have these beautiful glass windows, so you don't actually go into the laboratories, but you get to see what they do, and we have little displays, and
Okay.
It's amazing.
yeah, you get to actually talk to the experts.
If you want to see our lab, you have to be in DC. So our lab is based out of Washington, DC. But if
okay.
you're ever in the area, listeners in the area, let me know.
Where can people go to maybe participate in these internships?
So most labs have, I would say, have internship programs. So wherever you're local to, I know like Chula Vista PD has an internship program.
San Diego PD.
San Diego PD, yeah. Like I would contact local PDs. I'll let Leah talk about the sheriff's intern program, but like we have an internship program where our lab's in DC. So if a student is willing to go to DC, usually you have to be in a program, either a hard science or like a forensic science type program. So you have to have some kind of base knowledge for to be an internship, but to be in an internship there. But as an intern, you're able to do research, like real research for some of the needs within our agency, and then you come out of there giving a research, you do a research write-up. So you're able to do a presentation, and then you actually are written up in like a research journal. So it's really good experience to learn about the lab and learn the research side of what we do in laboratories as well. So we have non-paid and paid internships. So definitely go on the Secret Service website, and if your listeners are interested in going out to DC is an amazing area.
Yeah.
There's definitely some awesome internship positions with the service.
Okay.
Wow.
And with the Sheriff's Department, again, it's on the same website and I'll send you a link to that website. Same website that you can find to get a tour. We do have an internship program, and about twice a year they take applicants and they actually do a hiring process, an interview process, and they usually take about it depends on the group of people that they get. But I've seen them hire about 6 of them, and it's non-paid. It is voluntary. And you go through a rigorous training program. And then after the training program, you actually go through a moot court. So they set you up in a moot court where you have to testify, which is kind of nerve-wracking, but you get to, it's real life. That's what you're going to eventually have to do. Everyone in the lab, they do testify. So they set you up for the testimony. Once you pass, then you actually get to work on real case. And this is for latent fingerprints. This is processing evidence, real evidence for fingerprints, and then you collect them and then you submit them for the rest of the lab to work, like somebody like myself. And then once you've done that for a while and you're doing good, they actually start letting you go to crime scenes. So it's great. And again, it's an internship. So it's a way to see if you're even going to like this.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one internship in the crime lab. And then I think that I might be wrong, but I think DNA has some internships as well. But primarily the one I know about is in latent prints, and it's pretty popular. And again, all the interns have basically got hired. We just hired one of our interns.
Oh, okay.
So it's got a great success rate. Again, majority of them leave San Diego, and some have come back, but they've gotten their foot in the field.
Yeah.
So
And they're known for their internship program. Like, it's
Right.
amazing training that they do there at the
How
Sheriff's
long is the
Department.
program, the internship program?
I think the training goes, it takes a while to do the training. A couple of them, I'm not even going to lie. I actually don't know the number, but it's
Okay.
a while.
Okay.
And one of my coworkers, he does a great job training them, and that's what he does. Along as being as a latent print examiner, that's part of his job, is doing the recruiting for this and mentoring them and then turning them loose. So, and then the interns have either sometimes having chances to even really testify, because if you're working on the evidence, you have chances to actually testify in court yourself.
Yeah.
Real court, not a moot court. So,
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's some amazing opportunities for the Sheriff's Department.
yeah,
And I'm
definitely.
sure for all the locals, too. So
All the
Yeah.
locals. Chula Vista actually pays. That's where Reyna went. I think I was paid when I went there. They were paid and non-paid, and San Diego PD does. And
Yeah, I think Chula Vista has changed a little bit. I know that was a long time ago, Leah. That was the intern there.
yeah.
But,
Me too. Before you.
But get on the phone and call. Call
Yeah.
these local police departments. Don't be scared to call them up and say, hey, can I talk to a representative in the crime lab? And look at you. Like, I know it seems kind of intimidating, but there's so many of us that want to help
That is
you
true.
succeed in this field.
Yeah.
So don't be intimidated. Like, hit me up on LinkedIn. Like, I answer questions on LinkedIn. Like, I get questions
Really?
from students that see where I work and what I do, and they message me, and then I give them advice, or, hey, this is what my educational path was. But it's those students that actually reach out that will get the help. But you got to reach out. You
Right.
have to.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Connections. Yep.
Well, thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. It was fun. Thank you for
Yes.
having us.
Really,
Thank
really
you.
great talking to you guys. I'm so glad I got to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice to meet you as
Yeah.
well.
I see your ass sometimes.
You're stuck with me now.
Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.